Understanding which type of business you are is vital for legal and tax stuff. South African law caters for many types of businesses, ways in which you can trade in South Africa and make money. But it is important that you understand exactly which type of business you are. And there are mainly two reasons why you would want to know which type of business you are. The first one is taxes. As Benjamin Franklin famously quoted, the only thing that is certain is death and taxes. And you are going to be paying taxes, whether in your personal capacity or whether you have a business registered. Either way, you will be paying taxes. But why you would want to make sure that you understand which type of business you are is because certain entities attract certain type of taxes, where others do not. So in your personal capacity, you pay tax annually for the taxable income, and it's based on your tax bracket. However, if you are a company, you will only be paying on 28% flat rate or 7% if you are a small medium enterprise. And there are allowable deductions if you are a company. So it is important that you understand which type of entity you are and the tax benefits that can be ascribed to either entity. The second reason why you would want to know which type of business you are is for legal compliance and liability. Now, this is a very big aspect when deciding to become an entrepreneur, because as soon as we decide we want to venture on our own and make money, then we need to make sure that we also protect our assets, so that if something happens to the company or to us, that either way the company or we are protected in our personal capacities. So it is very important that we understand which type of business we are for purposes of liability and protecting the interests of our family and our own interest as well as our business interests. Let's talk about the three business types that you can trade in South Africa. There are other entities as well, but I'm only going to be discussing these three and why it is important that you understand which one you are. The first one is a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor is you trading in your own personal capacity. So it would be Leonie Steenkamp trading as the legal stuff, for argument's sake. And my registration number would be my ID number. It is important to understand what a sole proprietor is, because a sole proprietor will be paying tax on your personal tax bracket. So in other words, if the company is making R1,000,000 a year, then you would be paying tax on the maximum tax bracket in your personal capacity. However, if it was registered as a company, you might only be paying 28% flat rate tax, which is a lower tax percentage. But this is really based on your personal situation and where your business is at the moment. The other thing that you really need to consider when you are a sole proprietor is that anything you own, the company owns, and whatever the company owns, you own, because in essence, you are the company. That means that if you buy cars and houses and you trade and something happens to the business, in other words, you might have a creditor wanting payment and you cannot meet that payment, then they can also hold you liable in your personal capacity for any amount that is due and owing to them. So as you can see, your personal assets are not really protected as much when you are trading as a sole proprietor. Again, it doesn't mean that it is the wrong type of business to trade in. It means that you need to consider whether it is the right way for you and your business to trade in at the moment. You might be in the process of starting up and still building up a business, so it doesn't have such a big impact on you and your business assets. The second type of entity is a partnership. No ship like a partnership. While a partnership is you and two or more partners trading together, where one person perhaps brings in the money, the other person brings in the skill or the premises. It means that each and every person in that entity has to bring in something to that partnership. A partnership can be between 2 and 20 partners. And the main thing about a partnership is that you are still actually trading as in your personal capacity. So you would be paying tax on your personal tax bracket. So whatever the partnership has earned throughout the year gets split into the partners and you pay tax accordingly. So there are certain deductions that can also be allowed in this, but it is very important that you understand that the liability aspect would be the same as a sole proprietor, because you are still acting in your personal capacity to a certain extent. That means that you are jointly and severally liable for any debt or amounts owing. So if someone a creditor wanted to get paid for amounts that you owe them, then they would be able to approach the partners in their personal capacity for payment of that amount. So it means that you are not as protected as you might want to be, but it is also a way in which you can trade as a business in South Africa. The last entity that I'm going to discuss is companies. Now, there are a lot of different types of companies in South Africa. You get personal liability companies, non-profit organizations, and so on. But the only company that I'm going to be discussing today is the Proprietary Limited Company. So that means that you have registered your company with CIPC and you have the words Pty Ltd at the back of your name. That means that the company's liability is limited to that company and it becomes a separate juristic person. So the company is then trading. You'll also note that you have a registration number now, and your registration number is allocated to you by CIPC. And if you are a Pty Ltd company, then you would have the suffix of 07 on your company registration number. The thing about companies is that you are now, or your company is now, a separate juristic entity. So it can trade and it can buy assets and it can retain assets. So a company would be able to buy a house, to buy a car, and to sell a car and sell a house, for argument's sake. So that means that if you want to work for your company, you would be a director of your company. That means that you are managing the affairs of the company. But you can also have shareholders of that company. And shareholders are the people that own the company and manage and have interest in that company. So they will also have a say about the management affairs to a certain extent of that company. If you are a startup company, you are most likely going to be the sole director and shareholder of your company. You might also be splitting that with your partner and have 2 shareholders and 2 directors. You might consider employing another director to maybe manage a certain department of your company, and that does not necessarily make them a shareholder in the company. Companies is a great way to trade because they separate the liability from your personal capacity. So if you have a company, then it means that if the company suffers any damages or have creditor liabilities, then that creditor is not able to come after you in your personal capacity for any debts owing or amounts owing. So it is a good way of separating your personal interest from business interest and protecting your personal assets and your family's assets from a company. So that is a very important aspect. The other aspect is obviously that the maximum tax that you can pay is a flat rate of 28%. There are also variable deductions that is allowed in terms of a company that can be beneficial. But you would have to speak to your accountant to make sure that your type of business is best suited for the tax purpose that you have, to set up the most effective tax structure, the most effective liability structure for you and for your business. If you are thinking about your business, it's important that you understand that businesses are like humans and they are trading, and If we want the best business structure, then we need to implement that and proactively ensure that we are thinking about the tax and the compliance and the legal aspects of a business. If you have any questions about companies, businesses, you can DM me, send me an email at hello@thelegalstuff.co.za, and we can have a look at your business setup.